Hello, my name is Emmanuel. Once again from Power Tutorials, I'm about to take you through how to rig this amazing beast. First of all, I want to say I'm sorry for my last tutorial because the voice was very bad. So if you watch my last tutorial and you're watching this one, then I just want to say I'm sorry about that voice because I was using a wrong voice or audio output. Yeah, so having found a new way to, kind of bring these tutorials to you, I decided that we are going to rig this beast. Now, taking a look at the beast, we see that it looks like a lion, but then looks like a bull at the face. Okay, so this is a kind of a complex model that I think we need to rig. I say complex not just because the model looks it's a merge of two creatures. No, the reason why I say it's complex is because it has the component of the hair. So if I should go to the object mode, you can see that we have the hair on the creature. Okay, and then we have the creature itself. Okay, so now the hair is made up of a lot of polys, and sometimes it becomes hard to go around this. Okay, but in this tutorial we are going to actually use an add-on that will help us rig this creature fast and then move on to an animation. So those who follow my tutorial, you know how I do it. I don't actually do the tutorial for the tutorial's sake, but then I also want to impact the knowledge of rigging, the knowledge of weight painting into you as we go ahead. Okay, and feel free to share your ideas because this is a learning tutorial and not as much as to say I know it all. Whatever you feel about the video, just leave it below in the comment section. I just want to go ahead straight away and then get into the tutorial. Now, before I even get into rigging this creature, you have to understand rigging. Rigging is basically just giving a bone framework to a model so that you can animate the model or the creature or whatever it is. And in so doing, we have the bone structure, which is known as the armature. So when you press Shift A to add, or you can come here to add the bones. Okay, so you can see what is written here is called the armature. When you add a single bone, okay, the framework of these bones becomes the armature of the model. Okay, so the armature basically is what moves the character or the mesh. Okay, now you can see that this is in a mesh form and therefore it cannot be moved or be animated. The reason behind it is because we haven't defined the position of the armature in the mesh, okay, or the parts of the mesh where the armature will be controlling. Okay, and the process of doing that is called weight painting. Okay, so in order to understand the weight painting process, the part or the process of giving the armature to the model, you have to understand the basic concept of weight painting. Okay, yeah, so in this first tutorial I'm going to keep it very simple and explain to you what weight painting means. And I quickly added a cube to the 3D viewport. Okay, in this tutorial I'm assuming that, okay, probably you've learned a little modeling, you've learned a little about the interface, how to add stuff to the 3D viewport. If you have not, check out the tutorial I'll be making for the interface of Blender and also getting to know Blender. Okay, but let's assume you've checked that tutorial out already, so let's move forward. We have a plane, an object in the scene. Okay, in order to be able to animate this object, we need to add a lot of vertices or sections to this object. The reason behind it is that in deformation of the object, Blender should be able to recognize a point a joint should be, like for instance, the way the elbow of a human joint work. Blender should be able to recognize the joints, the moving parts, and it is the number of polys or vertices that entails in the object that enables that to be able to take place. So, for instance, if we have a mesh in the 3D viewport, how do we make this work? First of all, what we need to do is that we add an armature. So we add an armature by pressing Shift A, mesh. We don't need a mesh, so we look for armature. So you bring it to armature, you click on what a single bone. Okay, you click on the single bone, automatically let's say in the wireframe mode or the viewport shading, that's the wireframe, and then we can see through the mesh. Now we have this bone. Okay, let's scale the bone up by pressing S. Okay, this is fine. Okay, now we have to define, okay, if there is a joint in this mesh that we want to be able to rotate, okay, as a midpoint, then we have to define that this bone needs a joint. Okay, in order to do that, we have to press tab, okay, get to editing mode, and then we press W or W, and then we subdivide this bone. Okay, after subdivision, I need to explain to you how this bone setup works. Okay, with each and every bone, okay, we have the head and then we have the tail. Okay, so this is the head, this is the head, and this is the tail, okay? And for this bone, this is the head, and this is the tail, okay? So this is how it works: 1, 2, and then we have the 3. Okay, so in this setup, we have the head, we have the tail, we have the head, and we have the tail. When you create an armature, okay, let's bring the cursor here. Let's create another armature. The first bone that you have is said to be the parent bone, okay? It's said to be the parent bone. Now, with the parent bone, what it means is that it is going to be the bone that controls other bones, okay? So if, for instance, I should select the top of, that is the tail of this bone, and press extrude by pressing E on the keyboard, and extrude up by pressing Z to control the points where I want the bone to go to. Now, the bone that I just created becomes the child bone of this, the down bone, okay? So that is the relationship between the top bone and the down bone. The reason behind it is when we go to the pose mode, which is different from the edit mode, okay? These are the modes. So we have the edit mode, we have the object mode, we have the pose mode. Now you can see that at the pose mode, the parent bone is able to control, it's just like the relationship we have with our parents. The parent bone is able to control the child bone, okay? So if I should rotate this around, move this around, you can see that the child bone moves along. Likewise, if I should rotate the child bone, you can see that the parent bone still stays intact, right? So we have the child bone, we have the parent bone. And if we should come to editing mode and then extrude one more time, now we can see that this now becomes a child bone of this, and this is a child bone of this, okay? But this is a parent bone of this. So when we get to the pose mode, this controls the top bone, but does not control the down bone. That's just because the middle one is the child bone of the parent bone, which is below it, and also the parent bone of the bone that is above it. Okay, I hope you get this relationship right. All right, so let's delay this. Let's get to rigging. Now that we have defined the pivot point, which is this point right here, okay, what we need to do is to parent the mesh to the bone, okay, so that there will be deformation. Okay, there can be deformation, let me put it that way. Okay, in so doing, what we need to do is to select the mesh, and we select the bone, and then we press Ctrl P. Okay, when we press Ctrl P, you can see that Blender brings up a menu that says set parents to. What we need to choose here is automatic weights. Okay, when we select automatic weight, Blender will try to calculate the weights of the bones to the mesh. Okay, so now when we select the bone and go to pose mode, you can see that when I move or rotate this bone, you can see that the object moves at the joint. That is the basics of what we are about to learn, okay? This is the basic of what we are about to learn. And in so doing, I need to take you through what weight painting is, okay? Now, the reason why this bone is able to move the object in this way is because this bone has gotten weight on the mesh here, okay? And the way to check it, we select the bone, we select the mesh, and then we come to objects, and then we come to weight paint. Now, immediately we come to weight paint, let's turn on our toggle X-ray so that we can see the bone beneath the mesh. You can see that when I select this bone, you can see the red outline here, the red paintings here, the yellow, green, blue. That is called the weight, okay? So this bone is having a weight on certain areas of the object, okay? It's having the weight on certain areas of the object. Okay, that is called weight painting. So when I select the down bone or the bone below, that is the parent bone, you can see that it also has a weight. It also has its own weight, okay, on certain areas of the object. So now, what I want you to get from the beginning of this video is that you cannot move, animate, or deform an object without an armature. 2. An armature is made up of a parent bone and a child bone. 3. The naming in every bone, we have the head and then we have the tail, okay? Before an armature can deform a mesh, there must be weight painting, okay? So in the next tutorial, we'll be discussing how to actually weight paint manually, because it is a requirement for complex rigging. It's a requirement for complex rigging. So this is what I have for you for the first part. Let's move to the second part, but follow this tutorial right now. By the end of this tutorial, I'm going to make sure that you understand the concept of rigging, and all the difficulties that I had while learning rigging will be digested here so that you can find it easier. Follow the tutorial by subscribing, commenting, liking, especially subscribing to the channel. Okay, so let's go on.